Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here, president of Convention Estates Action, and we are here with the Sunday Night BattleCry. By the way, I'm here with Doc. Some of you met Doc when he was just a little puppy. He is now almost a year old and 150 pounds. Actually, exactly a year old on September 12th. So he's a big boy. He's the new official Convention of State Dogs along with Winston. But I just wanted you guys to get a quick look at him. He'll probably be sleeping in the background here in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, that's Doc and part of the Convention of States family, obviously. It's been a heck of a week. We got a lot to talk about. I'm going to get into a long discussion about Charlie Kirk and what happened this week. And that's not an easy discussion for me. Before we do, I have a couple of announcements to make that are still important and that actually Charlie would want us making. Number one is we have to defend the Constitution. And this week is Constitution Week, this coming week. 17th is officially Constitution Day. The 15th is the day that Article 5 gets introduced to the Constitution. So we should focus on that. Charlie Kirk was a constitutionalist. He would want you focused on that. On our website, we have lots of free educational resources that allow you to spread the word about the greatness of our Constitution. You can download the COS Pocket Guide there, coloring books, crosswords, and there's a lot more than that. Go to conventionestates.com/1787. All that stuff's free. The goal, the job is to raise up and engage self-governing citizenry that helps to keep our republic. We need that going for not just now, but for the future. Also during this week, which is Constitution Week, you can watch the live stream of the 2025 Race to Freedom COS Leadership Summit. That's where I'm going to be. That's where a lot of our leaders from around the country are going to be. You can go to conventionofstates.com/race to freedom. And we're going to have special speakers, including Governor Mike Braun, Kelly Means from the MAHA team at the White House, Rick Green, Dr. Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation, and a lot more. So if you'll hit the like button, if you'll subscribe, ring the notification bell, that'll make sure you never miss any of this incredible content. And if you want to read more news about COS, more valuable action inputs delivered straight to you, sign up at conventionestates.com/BattleCry list. That's /BattleCry list. All right, we're going to start with a call to action, which relates to Charlie Kirk, and then we're going straight to Charlie, which is not easy. The call to action is pick up the mic. The video is iconic. If you haven't watched it, I recommend you don't. But sadly, I saw the video of Charlie Kirk getting shot. As soon as I heard he was shot, I went and looked online, and that video was right there. And you see him sitting there in his iconic pose on the stool, mic in one hand, and then they took his life. An assassin's bullet took his life. And of course, he dropped the mic. And now it's our job. It's the job of we the people, you and me and everybody else. Lots of people I'm seeing online. It's not unique to me. It's not unique to anybody else who's in leadership in any organization. It's all of us. What Charlie would want us to do is pick up the mic. And so that's our call to action. And what that means to you specifically is it means to be bold in your speech, to be bold in your countenance, to not be a summer soldier or a sunshine patriot, to actually be in the fight when it's most difficult. And now is a very difficult time. And what that means to me is that you talk to your friends and family about it, that you tell them that when the left continually calls people Hitler and racists and Nazis and homophobes and Islamophobes and misogynists and Neanderthals and say that we're committing genocide against trans people and all this horrible stuff, when the left consistently does that, people are going to die. Eventually, people are going to die. Because if you consume all that media and you believe that people like you and me are Nazis, if that's what you're taught, and you believe that people are trying to commit genocide against you and that's what you're taught, and you're not mentally well, eventually somebody who's not mentally well is going to pick up a gun and kill somebody, like we saw with Charlie this week. And so our job in picking up the mic, I'm not saying you need to be on stage. I'm not saying you need to be a great public speaker. I'm saying you need to speak up. So I'll be specific about what I mean. You're sitting around the family dinner table and one of the kids said something radical and stupid and leftist. You have an obligation to say something. You can't just think, I don't want to fight about it. I'm not going to have this fight. It's ridiculous. You need to be educated and you need to be able to say something about it. People who say that kind of stuff need to feel like there's going to be pushback, like they can't just say crazy stuff like Trump is a Nazi or whatever they say. Trump is a totalitarian or Marco Rubio is a Nazi, or Elon Musk is a Nazi, or Trump is Hitler. We can't let them just say those things and get away with it. It doesn't mean I want to silence their speech. I'm not saying that. I think everybody has the right to say whatever they want, no matter how stupid it is. But it does mean that you and I, if we're going to pick up the mic, we have an obligation on our end of the mic to speak back and to say something about that, about those kinds of things. I did it in the Washington, D.C. airport. The day that Charlie was killed, I was headed home. Somebody sitting next to me said that, well, what did he expect with all the inflammatory stuff he said? And I went off on her. I just said, it's people like you that caused Charlie Kirk to get killed. Have you ever listened to Charlie Kirk? Do you actually know what Charlie Kirk did? Do you actually know what Charlie Kirk said? Did you watch him conduct discussions with people? Do you understand that this was a man who loved his fellow man so much that he was willing to talk to anybody about anything at any time? And then he invited people who opposed his ideas to the front of the line to have the discussion with him, that he was always polite, he was always genteel, he was always kind. Are you aware of that? Did you actually see anything Charlie Kirk ever did? And the usual answer is no. She just sat there stunned. And I accused her of being the kind of person that fostered the environment that caused Charlie Kirk to get killed. And when I said that to her, I'm not saying it to her to convince her, by the way. People might say I should have been nicer, I should have been more gentle with her. That it's not correct from my perspective. Because what I want is next time she's sitting in the airport and she starts to say something stupidly leftist and offensive, that she thinks about it and she doesn't assume that everybody around her is going to just accept her stupid, offensive leftist comments. And that she realizes there might be a consequence for saying the things I'm saying right now. I'm all in favor. I'm seeing all these people who post their glee at Charlie Kirk getting killed. They're posting their glee online at him. They're getting terminated by their employers. I'm in favor of that. They're not decent human beings. These are, like, we're seeing psychologists and medical professionals, nurses, anesthesiologists saying this kind of stuff. Do you want that kind of a person at a hospital treating you? What are they going to do to you if they find out you're a conservative, you're a Christian, you're a Republican? Do you trust them to be treating you? The answer is no. None of us should trust them. Anybody who takes glee in the death of another American citizen, a guy who never harmed anybody, a guy who never did any violence to anybody, if they take glee in that death, then yeah, I think they should be shamed out of the public sphere. I don't have a problem. That's a healthy form of cancellation, right? These are people who hate you. They have deep hatred in their hearts and they want to see you destroyed, and they shouldn't be serving us in the public sphere at all. And they should, in my opinion, pay a social price for that. So I'm all in favor of that. Collect the names, point it out to their employers. Now it's up to their employers whether they fire them or not. But what I'm seeing is most employers don't believe that people like that should be in their employ because most people don't think like that. So pick up the mic, say the thing, whether it's to your kids, an old friend, somebody at church, somebody in your workplace. I had somebody say to me this week that their friends list has grown a lot lighter this week because when they see people celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk, they realize fundamentally, I don't really have anything in common with a person like that. And so they're not going to continue to be friends with them. So I want to step back, remind you to pick up the mic. We're going to talk about that a lot. We're going to be sharing that a lot. We're going to be doing things about you and me picking up Charlie's mic, that difficult blood-stained mic, and speaking into it and speaking truth unapologetically like Charlie always did. So I met Charlie probably, I want to say 12 years ago or so. I wouldn't say that I'm friends with Charlie. I think I see a lot of people overstating that. But I've known Charlie for a long time. I met him when he was quite young. He was 19, 20 years old. And I've had the occasion to be with him socially multitude of times. And the reason was we had a mutual friend who used to organize hunting trips, and Charlie would go and I would go, and fishing trips, and Charlie would go and I would go. And that gave me occasion to spend a bunch of time with Charlie. I never knew our time would be so short, but obviously in hindsight, I treasure it even more. And you could tell early on that Charlie was a different guy. Charlie at 19 or 20 years old was as motivated as anybody I ever met, as enthusiastic about as anybody I ever met, loved the country as much as anybody I ever met. But he was also young and in my opinion, a little bit awkward. Most of the people who knew him back then would agree, and didn't have the speaking skills that he had as a full-grown adult, didn't have the intellect that we saw him exercising over the last few years in the public sphere, didn't have the political sophistication, obviously. But I had the opportunity to watch him grow from a kid who believed in what he was doing to a man who led what is arguably the most powerful political organization in the United States of America, certainly the most powerful youth organization in the United States of America. And I watched him grow as he did that. He grew into the role, became a incredible, motivating public speaker. And along the way, I would argue his faith matured and he became an incredible advocate for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Really inspiring to watch him do that. Got married, had two beautiful children, now 1 and 3 years old. Beautiful wife, just kind of quintessential beautiful family. 31 years old, he had accomplished things that almost nobody else could say they had ever accomplished. And so knowing him through that, real privilege, got to be up close and personal with a great American. On the day Charlie was shot, I was in the newsroom at Just the News with John Solomon. John Solomon, if you don't know him, I think is the single best investigative journalist in America. And we were there. We were meeting about some other stuff. Someone came running into the conference room to tell us Charlie had just been shot. And of course, we immediately opened our phones, looked at X, saw the news, and I watched John go to work. John started reaching out to his sources at the White House and the FBI and all over the government, and certainly immediately confirmed that Charlie had been shot. And of course, then all of us were waiting for the news. Would he survive? And we prayed, like I think probably millions of people in America prayed. And then in the middle of an interview, John handed me his phone, and it was from a source who said he's dead. I don't have an adequate description for how I felt in that moment. Sick, sad. I really don't. I just, if it seems like I'm at a loss for words, it's because I am. The very first stage of dealing with grief is denial, and I think what I thought mostly, even though I knew it was true, was it's not possible. Here, still several days later, I think I'm still dealing with that. It seems impossible. Charlie was so young and so filled with life and so much ahead of him, and loved his family, loved the Lord, had this incredible organization, was known and loved all over the world, and to have him gone, it still doesn't seem possible. So the first question is, how do we get here? How does this happen in America, that a political assassination like this can happen? And you have to ask yourself, is this isolated? And the answer is no, it's not isolated. We've seen two very serious attempts on Donald Trump's life, one almost successful. The other one, the shooter at the golf course, was captured before he could get shots off. Excuse me. I'm tired. I've been up a lot late this week, struggling to sleep about all this stuff. So with two attempts on the president's life, we had the CEO of United Healthcare gunned down from behind in cold blood in Washington, D.C. And this is all part of a pattern. Charlie himself posted on X, I think it was on July 25th, that the left has created a culture of assassination in America. Don't forget the attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh by the leftist who was unhappy about the coming Roe versus Wade decision after a pre-copy was leaked. So multiple assassination attempts, and I'm sure there are many more that we don't know about. And the left seems to like this. Last time I checked, using specialized AI for this purpose. Over 40% of the comments on X about Charlie's assassination were positive. Posters are showing up on college campuses that are line drawings of Charlie with a hole blown in his neck and say, debate this. This is a cultural issue. It's a spiritual issue. It's evil. It's dark. It's satanic. It's anti-Christian. You know, Jesus was hung on the cross because of who he was, and Charlie was killed because of his beliefs. First of all, he was a courageous Christian. You can look at interviews where he talks about what he wanted to be remembered for. And he said, I wanted to be remembered as somebody who courageously proclaimed my faith. You got it, Charlie. We'll all remember you as that. When asked what was the most important, he replied, my relationship with the divine, my relationship with Jesus Christ. Not his family, not his country, who he loved dearly both, but his relationship with the Lord. The left doesn't like religion, and specifically, they really hate Christianity. And Charlie was a devout Christian who did a great job of defending his faith and talking about his faith. So we have a culture on the left in America that vilifies people of faith, that professes that assassination is appropriate, and we're dealing with the consequences of that. The left routinely called Charlie a Nazi, called him Hitler, called Trump a Nazi, called Trump a totalitarian. I get a lot of that same stuff. And when you do that over and over and over for years at end, and it's not just some fringe on the internet, it's late night talk show hosts, it's actresses and actors, it's musicians, it's people on X, and they say these things over and over. Eventually, some mentally ill person is going to get it in their head that if Hitler exists and it's Donald Trump, you got to kill him. That if our government really is becoming totalitarian, if Mark Meckler really is a Nazi, then you got to kill us. That if Brian Thompson, who was the CEO of United Healthcare, is really an evil capitalist who is taking our healthcare away from all of us, then you got to kill him. And that's what happens. And that's the consequence. Luigi Mangione, the guy that killed Brian Thompson, they're now naming ballot initiatives after him in California. He's a hero. He's raised an incredible amount of money on GoFundMe. He's in prison for murder, and yet thousands and thousands of women love him and send love notes to him. We have a problem in this country. We have some cultural rot, some spiritual rot that's leading to this kind of stuff. So where does it go from here? What do we have to do? Right? One, we have to pick up the mic and all of us have to start speaking, but we have to push back against this stuff. And the one thing that we can't do, that we mustn't do, that I'm begging you not to do, is we can't be lawless. We can't encourage killings. We can't encourage breaking the law or the damage and destruction of real property, personal property. We can't do that. We can't become like the people that we hate. But we can and we should demand radical, aggressive enforcement of the law. We must be a rule of law society. We must insist that people pay the penalties for their crimes. We must insist that people don't get let out of jail constantly for all these crimes. Cash-free bail now going on all over the country, destroying our cities. We must insist that our cities are safe. And if the mayors won't clean them up, we must insist that the governors do. And if the governors won't clean them up, and in the areas where it's concurrent with the president's legal constitutional authority, we should get federal help on that. We must insist on the rule of law. Charlie was a rule of law guy. He believed in the American Constitution, and he believed in the rule of law, and he would want us to fight for it. So that's something that we have to do. We have to be engaged in the fight. It's not enough to just pick up the microphone and talk. Charlie did a lot more than that. The young people who follow Charlie do a lot more than that. They register to vote. They go help other people register to vote. They help get out the vote. Charlie was instrumental in President Trump's victory. And the reason we have President Trump as president is at least in part thanks to Charlie Kirk. And we have to emulate that. We have to be like Charlie in that. We have to be doing more than just voting, than just talking. We have to be out there doing. Charlie Kirk was a builder. He was a doer. So the best thing that we can do to honor him is to continue to build the conservative infrastructure, continue to build this country, and continue to do great things. That's what Charlie would have wanted for us. And as we move from where we are now into the midterms, we have an obligation to register more people who think like us, to fight for more, to do more, to be engaged more. That obligation is to our country. That obligation is to each other as citizens, as it says in the Declaration of Independence. We pledge to each other our lives, fortunes, and our sacred honor. And now, that obligation is to a man who gave everything in the fight for liberty, who died a martyr, a Christian martyr. He died for his faith, who died a free speech martyr, an American martyr. Charlie Kirk. We owe that to Charlie. I assume that over the next days and weeks, all of us will mourn together. There will be a funeral for Charlie. I'm sure it will be massive. It's a great thing, but it's sad that that's going to happen. And I'm sure we'll go through all those stages of grief. I'm sure we'll get over our denial, or at least I will. I'm sure I'll be angry at some point, and ultimately I'll make my way to resignation, that this is just the way it is. But just the way I am, I don't know how you guys are. The way I am is that won't be enough for me. I won't just resign myself to it and say, oh, well, Charlie got killed and here we are. I will do something more than I've ever done before to make sure that I pick up the mic and honor the legacy of Charlie Kirk. We owe that to Charlie. May he rest in peace. We owe that to his wife, Erica, and his kids. We owe it to all the young people who believe in and followed Charlie Kirk and TPUSA to help carry that legacy forward into the future. So that's what I'm going to do. You know, I wrote a piece about Charlie the day it happened. I posted that up on our website at conventionestates.com. And I got a bunch of comments online back to me about it. So I'm going to read some of those comments and just comment back on that. Texas Bell, Cindy for Liberty, said there'll never be anyone else like Charlie, a man with integrity, heart, and faith that comes along once in a generation. A man we should all aspire to be ourselves. He will be missed, but his message will go on. I would agree with that. Like, we're all one of a kind, made in God's image, but Charlie was really something. And I don't believe that we're going to see another one like him anytime soon. But all of us together can go out there and do our best to be Charlie. John McDonald said Charlie's first and most important priority was Christ. As a follower of Christ, truth was always his goal. Speaking that truth, especially to a younger generation, was what he did so well. His example of courage will hopefully embolden many to follow him in speaking truth to power. I agree. We talked about that. His faith was first. Diana Tella says, never give up on hope. Never doubt, never tire, and never be discouraged. Be not afraid. There's no evil to be faced that Christ does not face with us. There's no cross to bear that Christ has not already carried for us and does not bear with us now. Be not afraid. Pope John Paul II. Beautiful sentiment. I agree. It applies to our times very well. Adam Maluso says, that was so beautiful, Mark. I've cried so much over the last 24 hours over someone I didn't even know personally. But Charlie was such a voice for people like me and my generation. It feels like I lost a big brother and my soul is grieved. We'll never stop carrying on his legacy. And I agree with you, Adam, and I will help you to do that. Anything I can do to help, I'm going to do anything and everything I can to continue Charlie's fight. Cindy Franco said, beautifully written. We've lost a great man, America's son. Let's pray the millions of young men he has inspired to rise to his example, find God, and join the fight to save our country. I do think that's happening. This is Alfonso Tedeschi says, Charlie was a Christian and a believer in the COS movement. We can have him in our prayers and honor him by doubling down on the movement. The current state of our country has bred this toxic environment due to a federal government that's out of control. Too much power is drained away from the control of the states and is now circling out of control at the federal level, which in turn sows this evil behavior. The The federal government was never designed to implement all order from the top down. Civil order, law enforcement, and the daily needs of the people in each state should be only the concern of the states themselves. By allowing the federal government to step into every aspect of our lives, evil behavior is able to find more cover in the dysfunction created by the federal system than it would at the local and state level. And all I can say, Alfonso, is that I know Charlie agreed with that. I just brought up the article that I wrote, Charlie Kirk's Great Crime, Speaking Truth. And a great picture of Charlie there. Hard to look at pictures of Charlie right now. Sheila Monken says, pray for his family. Pray for America. May God bless the memory of Charlie Kirk, and may God grant us the courage to take up his mantle and finish his fight. So where are those who want to finish the fight? Courage, conviction, constitution. Learn it. Man, there are a lot of these. This is probably the most commented thing I've ever written. Not because of me, because of Charlie. Annie, thank you, Mark. That was absolutely beautiful, moving, and powerful article on Charlie. Been in tears all day, as so many have, watching this horrific story unfold. My prayers are with Charlie's wife and children who have to live the rest of their lives without him. I could go on and on. There's a lot of them. I just want to thank you guys for being in the fight, for joining me here on Sunday nights, and for praying for Charlie, for his soul, for his wife, for his kids, for his parents, for all of his close friends and family who knew and loved him, and for our nation. I think we can come through this, but it's going to take God's help. So I'll close by praying, saying, God, Lord in heaven, we always need you, but we need you now more than ever. When we do not understand, you understand. When we do not see, you see. And when our hearts are grieved, you heal us. Please provide us and all who listen here and our entire nation peace beyond all understanding, as only you can. Comfort his family, his friends, his wife, and the entire nation, Lord. I pray these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. We'll see you all next Sunday on the BattleCry.